It's midnight, and you're listening to WOLR, Outland Radio.
Well, the light's blinking again.
Who the fuck is that guy?
What? I don't know, man. I mean, this time it took us like 5 minutes to even notice it was blinking, but yet the voice still didn't come on until we sat down.
Once again, this is your fault. You read the fucking will. I would have just left it the fuck alone, because that was weird anyway.
Yeah. So, update on our weed situation. The day after that last broadcast, we woke up, and there was a shit ton of bud. Where the cigarettes always end up at. There was just a big old Ziploc baggie full of weed.
I still don't trust it.
I mean, I've been smoking it. I feel fine.
I feel happy. I smell that you're smoking that red. You should go down to that church over there. I heard they got some really good stuff.
Okay, man. I knew I should have gone to church.
I thought he left the shit. That's why I didn't smoke it. I thought he was trying to kill us.
No. If he didn't leave it, and he's not leaving the food, or the cigarettes, or the drinks, or...
Let's try a dogma moment. Big titty bitches just don't fall from the sky, you know?
Well, if we wake up tomorrow and there's a big titty naked bitch in the closet, we'll let you know on the next broadcast, I guess, because it took like a little less than 24 hours last time, so we'll give that a shot, I guess. So, I guess Paul called back in, so we have Paul on the line. He's going to tell us a little bit more about what's going on. You're on the air, Paul.
Hey everyone, my name is Paul, and I help manage a local haunted attraction somewhere in Ohio. I don't feel entirely comfortable providing any more information than that. While I can assure you that all these events are real, the names of the people, including my own, and places you'll be hearing throughout have been changed for privacy and safety reasons. Should you somehow internet sleuth your way into finding our location, do so at your own peril. I know, it sounds like a cheesy thing to say, and you probably think I'm just trying to hype the place up. But let me assure you, I am not. If you stick around and listen to these recordings, I'm confident that you'll come to the same conclusion yourself. Things have gotten out of hand recently, and I figured it was time to start documenting them. In case I disappear like most of the management team before me. I feel obligated to leave something behind for my replacement. I'm also doing this for my family, to ensure their safety should the need arise. I chose an audio format because it's the easiest way for me to document things while keeping up with my work and my home life. I'm doing this through a combination of recorded conversations and personal recollections that I hope don't become too confusing for the listener. I'll try to keep things as direct and simple as possible, but please, bear with me. If you're new to my story, I'd highly recommend starting from the beginning. There's a lot of details there you'll probably find useful as you move further along. For those of you that are familiar with our brand of absolute fuckery, I got you covered. To give you a quick recap, strange things are afoot at the Circle K. A plethora of cool points for anyone that picked up on that archaic reference. Unlike our time-traveling stoner friends from San Dimas, I found myself in the middle of a shit show that not even a time-traveling payphone booth can fix. Basically, the haunted attraction I work for, well, it's alive. It's full of terrifying things that primarily want to kill all the guests and staff, and probably me, at any given time. It's my job to help manage the actors, make the advertisements, and somehow find a way to survive the absolute fuckery that happens here. After an auspicious letter arrived from our mysterious benefactor, Mr. Moores, I went to a meeting with HR. My co-manager, Brian, and I sat down with Kathleen to discuss plans for a new event to drum up business. Also, Alex died. He was the head of our janitorial department. Have you ever seen that 80s movie, The Stuff? It was kind of like that. If you've never seen food, cheese in this instance, melt through a human body, well, lucky you. I don't think I'll ever eat nachos again. At least not anytime soon. Now, let's get back to that meeting. Once again, I flipped the appropriate color tab and I scanned it. The event was surprisingly basic, all things considered. We would be running an alternate version of our current haunted attraction for the public. In addition, we'd also be offering a murder mystery dinner before the normal attraction hours. The plan was to use outside contractors for all that, which was fine with me. Outside contractors fell firmly under the Allen's problem category. According to the to-do list, I'd be handling the usual advertising. I'd be provided with materials from the murder mystery company and the menu from the catering company to include in our online print ads and the video. All I really had to do was put it together and grab a few of our actors to film something cute yet creepy to generate interest. I did notice another item of concern as I glanced farther down. Our building and props manager, Derek, would need Brian and I to grab a few people to help with the rearranging and the redecorating of the haunt, since it was short notice. Other than a few days of hard labor, you might not think that warrants much concern. But what if you've already read isn't bad enough? Many of our props seem to obtain some level of temporary sentience at times. It's random enough that you don't know what to expect or when, but nearly always ends in a tragedy. I'll make sure to give you more information on that as well if it becomes relevant. With a plan in place, we all parted ways to get started on things for the event. Alan came in to have his meeting with Kathleen, and Brian headed off somewhere to call a few of our more reliable actors to schedule times for me to shoot the video and, to get help for Derek. I finished my lunch and headed to the meeting room. The staff portion of the haunt is a bit of a maze on the best of days, and I still find myself taking a wrong turn now and then. More than once, I've ended up in a completely different part of the building than the one I intended to. Part of me thinks the hallways are sentient and delight in screwing with me for some reason. It's best to get a head start on wherever it is you're going, just in case. After a couple false starts and an unexpected trip to merchandise storage, I finally made it to the meeting room. Brian was there, waiting for me. We still had a few minutes until the strays were due to arrive.
Any idea what this is about?
Brian asked. I could tell by the look on his face he was as freaked out as I was. No idea. I've never gotten more than a nod from any of them in the past. I generally just let them do whatever the hell they want, I explained.
Yeah, same. They're probably the best employees we have. Assuming we can even call them employees. Volunteers, maybe?
Brian hazarded a guess. That sounds like the most apt description I've heard. We don't pay them as far as I know. Maybe that's what this meeting is about, I replied.
Oh, before I forget, we'll have the cores in early tomorrow to get a jump on things. Should be some fairly smooth sailing, bro.
Brian filled me in. I should probably explain that. The cores. That's actually a common term in the haunted attraction industry. The cores is short for hardcores. The hunters that have been around since the doors first opened and leave it all on the floor every single night. They've been hunting long before you've been in business, and they'll still be hunting long after. The best thing about the cores is they live and die by their current haunt's reputation. They never take sick days. Even with an injury, they'll find a way to make it to work. They're the first to arrive for everything and always the last to leave. They'll even work extra hours free of charge, especially if it nets them some additional permissions and a few favors. I didn't know what to expect this last season, but as always, I'm impressed with those guys. Hopefully that's a sign of good things to come, I said, leaning over to meet Brian's fist with one of my own. Sometimes you have to stop and celebrate the little things. Exactly 3 minutes early, the strays strolled in the meeting room. I'd initially expected one or two to show up to speak for the dozens of them, and I was surprised when they all rolled in together. Only 3 of them sat at the table across from Brian and I. The others opted to lean against the back wall and cross their arms. I'd have called it out for the intimidation tactic it was, but something told me it was better to keep my mouth shut. Let me paint the scene a little more thoroughly, so you can fully comprehend and appreciate what we were faced with. Directly in front of us sat the largest of the strays. If I had to guess, I'd compare its size to your average 16-year-old girl. Average height, weight, but still just gangly enough to make you think it hadn't grown into its skin yet. It wore its usual plague doctor costume. On the other side of that sat 2 smaller characters. They were dressed in nurse costumes, similar to the old Silent Hill video game series. It was unsettling as hell to see them with the lights low, but somehow, in the bright of day, it was all the more terrifying. A dozen or so of them on the back wall, well, they were dressed as eyeballs. You heard me right. Eyeballs. Big ol' eyeballs with blue irises and thick red veins in the sclera. They were all around the 5-foot range or shorter, and you could barely see their child-sized arms and legs poking out at weird angles from the costume. Before Brian and I could say a word, something even more unprecedented happened. The plague doctor took its mask off. My earlier assessment wasn't too far off the mark. I'd probably nailed the age well enough, and it was certainly female in form. If it weren't for her eyes, she passed as an everyday teenager. Those eyes, well, they were completely black, sclera and all. I heard some movement next to me and glanced over at Brian. He looked pale all of a sudden and was furiously writing something in his notebook. When he was done, he slid it over to me, his eyes wide and twitchy. All he'd written were the words, "black-eyed children." He'd underlined it a few times and added a few exclamation points to get my attention. I'd heard the term before. No self-respecting horror aficionado would be worth their salt if they hadn't. The name pretty much describes them, children with all black eyes. There's a lot of stories about them on the internet. It usually entailed a few of them showing up at your front door in the middle of the night and asking to come inside or to wait for their parents. If you let them in, terrible things were supposed to happen to you. Unfortunately, this was not helpful information. The only thing people generally agreed on about them is that they had no real idea what they were, where they came from, or what their true purpose was. They've been labeled as aliens, demons, fae, and even physically manifested spirits. Other than a vague adult-sized, slender shape, less is known about their parents.
You are Paul and Brian.
She began. Yeah, that we are. For as long as I've been here, I don't think I've ever had the pleasure of knowing your name,
No, you have not.
she replied.
What should we call you?
Brian piped in, clearly as weirded out by the awkwardness of the situation as I was.
You call us the Strays, do you not? We have no other names.
She explained. Well, moving right along then, what can we do for you? I cut to the chase, curious to see how this would play out.
We have demands.
She replied. She nodded to the nurse on her left, who removed the folded up lid of an old pizza box from inside its costume and placed it on the table between us. Brian unfolded it and smoothed it between us so we could get a better look. I'm not sure exactly what they used to write the list, but they definitely had some fun with the rotten pizza toppings in the mix, and something else that was decidedly not pizza sauce. I copied the list down in Brian's notebook and slid the pizza box top back to them. There was no way in hell I was putting that in my filing cabinet. It wasn't until after I copied the list that I actually read it. I'm not sure what kind of deal they had with Mr. Morris prior to today, but based on what I saw on this list, a negotiation was long overdue.
Before we address your demands, it would help us to know what your current arrangement is with Mr. Morse. That way we can proceed on equal footing here.
Brian said.
Current arrangement.
She repeated. Yeah, what does Mr. Morris give you in exchange for showing up? The nurses leaned in from either side, each whispering something I couldn't quite make out into her ears. She seemed to consider what they had to say in silence for a full minute before she finally responded, though never took her eyes off of me.
We are often gifted those with lesser faculties.
You mean the drunks and junkies?
Brian asked in amazement. That actually made a lot of sense. I'd heard stories of what this place had been like in the early days. We were located in a rough area, so it wasn't surprising that we attracted less than desirable customers at times. I'd only experienced a few bad situations since I came on board, but I'd assumed that Alan and his team had been the ones to handle them. Fair enough. Let's get to the list. It looks like the first thing you have written down is access to better costume materials, I said. This one sounded simple enough.
Yes, we are currently limited to the byproducts of what Mr. Morris provides. It is not substantial enough to facilitate our needs.
She explained.
You're making your costumes out of people?
Do you not make clothing from the animals you consume? It's no different. What is man if not an animal?
She explained yet again. What additional materials would you like access to? I side-eyed Brian as I spoke. He needed to get it together before things took a further turn for the worse.
Access to the supplies in the costume department will suffice.
She answered. We can definitely do that. It looks like the next thing on your list is better sleeping arrangements. Where are you all staying now? This was sure to be interesting.
In the woods behind the building.
She responded.
Where would you like to stay instead?
Brian jumped in, apparently having calmed himself a bit.
Mr. Moores is currently closing a deal with the owner of the property to expand further into the strip mall. One such section was once designated as sleeping quarters for over a dozen humans. We wish to occupy this space.
She explained. Well, that's news to me. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and grant this too. If he's expanding, that means we'll need you and your people more than ever.
Item number 3 just says Chinese food Tuesdays?
Brian asked. I was just as confused as he was on that one.
Yes, it should be obvious. We would like Chinese food every Tuesday.
She explained. For the first time during all this, I was catching a slight edge to her voice. I have to be honest with you, I'm not sure we can do that. All the Chinese restaurants around here are closed on Tuesdays.
We would like Chinese food every Tuesday.
She reiterated, growling the last few syllables.
We can't just make them open to cook for us. Surely there has to be something else you'd like instead. Why not celebrate Taco Tuesday like the rest of...
Brian began. She gave a nod to each of her companions. Before I knew what was happening, they vaulted over the table at Brian. They yanked him right out of his seat and began, in what I can only describe as, a game of tug-of-war?
Say taco again.
She said, leaping over the table herself to meet him eye to eye.
Taco?
Brian obliged. I facepalmed. Before that moment, I always saw Brian as a somewhat intelligent guy, despite the obvious. I actually enjoyed working with him. He had a big mouth, though, and if I didn't act fast, it would be his doom. Okay, Chinese Food Tuesdays, consider it done. I shouted over the noise of both of Brian's shoulders popping out of their sockets. I had no idea how he would accomplish it, but that was going to be Brian's problem now. They roughly popped Brian's shoulders back into place and unceremoniously tossed him into his chair. His face was stark white and he was whimpering. He looked like he might slide right out of the chair, but by the look of things, he'd probably survive it.
No more games.
She said simply, hopping back over to her chair to face me along with her companions. The eyeballs in the back only giggled during all of this. It was almost more unsettling than what had actually been done to Brian. No more games, I agreed. She nodded at me in return. I took that as a sign to continue. Number 4 on your list is free occasional use of the event space. May I ask what for?
Same as everyone else.
She replied. Like birthdays, weddings, holidays, and etc.? I asked, intrigued. I hadn't considered them to be much like us at all, yet every request they'd made so far was completely normal. Another simple nod was all I got. Okay, I can easily grant that one as well. Let's move on to the final thing on your list, I said. I stared at the last item for a moment, trying to suss it out. The only thing on the final line was one word. Management. As far as I knew, we didn't have any openings.
Yes, you've read it correctly.
She said, obviously seeing the look on my face I'd forgotten to hide. Like a management system for your group, or...
No. I will now manage alongside you humans to keep an eye on things and ensure our best interests are properly considered going forward.
She revealed. While that seems entirely fair to me, I would need to consult with Kathleen in HR to ensure such a thing can be accommodated. We don't have any openings on the staff, so she need to create a new position. This could take some time, I explained. Just as the color started to return to Brian's face, it quickly fled. Her companions were on him again. The next thing I knew, they'd ripped his arms off and the eyeballs had swarmed him.
Not cool, bro. Not cool. Oh, God.
By the time his body hit the floor, he was nothing but bones and shreds of clothing. That whole time, she just sat there, watching my reaction, staring deeply into my eyes.
It looks like there's an open position. I start today,
she informed me. She got a simple nod from me in return this time, as I sat there in shock, trying to comprehend the absolute carnage I'd just witnessed. She stood. One by one, they slowly filed out, each one stopping to send a nod in my direction as they exited. Once they were gone, panic quickly set in. 2 men had entered this room with a job to do, now only one would exit. More importantly, how the hell was I gonna find a Chinese restaurant open on a Tuesday? Fucking Brian. As usual, if for any reason you don't hear back from me, something terrible has probably occurred. I'm likely in the hospital somewhere, or Cthulhu forbid it, dead and being used as a prop in the attraction. I've left instructions with a friend of mine to release this information to the public. The information will also be forwarded to my family and local authorities. I don't know if it will be taken seriously, but I have to hope for the best. Wish me luck. Paul.
Man, it's always super fucking interesting over there. Poor fucking Brian, though.
Fuck Brian.
Yeah. Brian seems like kind of a dick. Maybe it's a good thing he's dead. I don't know. Paul didn't seem that upset about it.
At least he can leave.
Yeah, apparently. Yeah, keep us updated on what's going on, Paul. Like, seriously, thanks for calling again, man.
That fucking weird. I don't want to play it buttons blinking now.
What button?
The one that says commercial.
Oh. Shit. Let's try a different button before we press the commercial button. Let's see what we got here.
You lost your button privileges last time. No.
Okay, you press the button then.
I don't want to press a button.
Press the one that says Minions.
I want some.
That was mildly disturbing. Program these goddamn buttons.
I didn't. I don't even know what they do.
They just make sound effects.
I am not qualified to run a radio station, sir.
Hit the commercial button.
Ugh.
Welcome to the Jesus Hour on this fine Sunday afternoon God has bestowed upon us. I am, as always, your Pastor Pedophilia. Today, we have an amazing young man here to spread the word of God. Our guest name is Richard Longshakes. Thanks for coming on the show, Dick.
Thanks, I'm really excited to be here, Pastor Pedophile.
No, that's pedofilman, Dick. So, you have brought our listeners something new to witness on this glorious Sunday afternoon. Would you please tell us what it is?
Well, Pastor Pedophile,
That's pedofilman, Dick.
through recent breakthroughs in hooked on Jesus technology, I'd like to present to you the newest, latest, greatest advancement in Bible study. Bible action figures! That's right, now you can take Jesus on his own adventure with his Kung Fu action grip.
Kung Fu action grip. Isn't that special, Dick? What does that button do? Ooh,
That's right, Pastor Pedophile.
that's a pedofilm, Dick.
Why drag your cross through the desert when you can ride it? You press that button right there, and this crucifix turns into a dinosaur. Roar!
Oh, well, that's not exactly educational. Now, is it, Dick?
Well, if it's education you're looking for, it's education you'll get, Pastor Pedophile.
That's pedofilman, Dick.
With Malibu Mary's Eden Beach House playset. What better way to reenact the mating habits of mankind?
What about the manger?
No room at the end? No worries. These hot tubs come filled with real holy water.
You can't do that, Dick.
But we already have, Pastor Pedophile.
That's pedofilman, Dick.
Coming soon.
Okay, this is too much. Look, this is all the time that we have for the show today. Thank you for coming to, oh God, thank you for coming to Jesus Hour. And this is, oh God. We'll see you again next Sunday when the big hand touches the little hand.
Roar.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
So we have God in a Box and Bible action
I'm
figures so
sensing an
far.
overly religious theme to these commercials, even though they're fucked.
I wonder if the church produces them. Well, I'm just saying, like,
No, you.
it's down there, and
Yeah.
they've been kind of churchy and odd.
And according to the janitor, they smoke dank, so it sounds like something a stoner would write.
You know what I saw today when I went outside? A shaved raccoon. And it was just sitting on the front steps, just sitting there. Like, I came outside, walked down the stairs, looked over, and it was just kind of there. It just kind of nodded.
What?
Yeah, a shaved raccoon.
Aren't those called chihuahuas?
No, I mean, I don't fucking know, man, but it was a shaved raccoon. It was just sitting on the steps. Like, not like sitting like a person, just kind of like, sitting like a raccoon sits, but just to be clear.
Oh, man. We need a pet, but not a shaved raccoon.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe just chill. He didn't seem like he had rabies or anything.
Can't pet something that doesn't have hair.
You know what? Wasn't the janitor screaming about shaving, like, body hair or facial hair the other day?
I didn't shave a raccoon in the studio. Did you shave a raccoon in the studio?
Not that I'm aware of.
I don't even like raccoons.
It's just weird. I don't know. I was just thinking about that. Maybe it shaved itself.
So we have a shaving raccoon that lives here too?
I don't know. Or someone shaving a raccoon. I don't know, man. Sometimes the janitor says weird shit. Like, that's the other thing I was going to tell you. So I was in the back hall, like where all the old carts are. Like for the stupid 8-track that we don't even use. And legit, there was actually gum all over the fucking walls. Just like he was bitching about the other day. I'm not even a little bit of gum. Like, I'm talking like gum fucking everywhere.
I'm talking about like the Seattle wall of gum,
I mean,
you know?
not arranged or anything. Like, it just seemed like it was like, and it's old gum, new gum, and it's like stretched in weird places. Like, you know, they like the really cheesy, shitty, like cobwebs you can buy like from Walmart for Halloween.
Yeah.
It's like somebody took a bunch of fucking gum and wadded it up and did that with it.
I don't even like gum.
I don't chew gum, so I've got no fucking idea. I don't know. I get a weird vibe, man. Like, every time the janitor fucking complains about something and we have no idea what the fuck is happening, it seems like we run into it at some point later.
I just want to go home. I hate this place.
Have you guys seen my pet raccoon? It got muzzled up in some gum, and I'm gonna need that shaver you guys were using.
But it was already shaved.
Maybe the raccoon was intelligent enough to shave himself? Do we have a free-thinking raccoon? That would be more dangerous than anything.
Dude, that's fucking weird.
But why would you have a pet raccoon?
Plenty of people have pet raccoons. That's not that abnormal. It's Ohio. I've known people that have pet raccoons.
Why would you have a pet raccoon when you never leave the building?
I don't know, man. All right, guys. Yeah.